Hello, everybody. How you doing? It's good to see you guys. Welcome again to another episode of ThrottleNet's webinar series. I have with me Chris Glockner. He is our service manager here at ThrottleNet. Chris, thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk about this topic today.
Absolutely. This is a topic that everybody's interested in, whether you're PC, Mac, and we're going to talk about some of those different things. But whether you have a workstation or a full-blown box, huge box computer, if it's running slow, we're going to talk about some things that you need to work on and pay attention to. So without further ado, and of course, if you have any questions at all, please type them in the chat, and we will try and answer them at the end. But again, this won't take that long, about 20 minutes or so, and then we're going to get to the Q&A. Chris, to start off though, and this is a cliche.
Yep.
Everybody always says, if you have a problem, if everything's running slow, go to the restart.
That's right. So in IT, it's a common joke. Have you turned it off and turned it back on?
Yes.
I can tell you that the first step is that for a reason. It's because the resolution of a lot of computer issues are turning off the computer and turning it back on. And why that is because as your computer runs, it's building up these log files, these transactions. It's really collecting all this data, and it has no way to release it a lot of the time. So turning off that computer and turning it back on releases all that data and kind of gives you a fresh start. So it's very important to make sure we're doing that on a routine basis.
And that's also something, I guess, with mobile devices, even tablets.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, because I'm not in a good habit of restarting my machines all the time. So.
Right. And if you think about it this way, for any motorheads we have out there, you use your car every day. You start your car every morning. When you get to where you're going, you turn it off. Now, you don't leave that car running all week when you're driving to work each day.
Right.
And if you did, you would experience a little bit more issues with that car.
Yes.
So it's thinking in terms of that, of really it helps preventative on the wear and tear on the hardware as well, but also it's clearing out these files, these caches, so that the next time it starts, it's a fresh start.
I love it.
It's operating a little bit more optimally than it would if it was just on the entire time.
So basically, I mean, we need to pretty much set a time once a week. At the minimum, right?
Once a week is fair.
Okay.
We like to time it with patching as well. So like internally here, we'll do it when a patch is applied. And we'll talk about updates a little bit later. And one of the key steps of any patch is really rebooting that computer to make sure the patch is applied. So once a week, if you're not patching, you should be. We'll talk about that later. But once a week, we should restart our computers.
Love it. Okay, that sounds fantastic. So, I mean, that goes along with the next one, and that is going to be, the next tip is going to be closing your programs. I am very guilty of this. I will leave open 30 plus programs.
Yes.
Or tabs on my browser, my web browser constantly.
Yep. Yeah, a good friend of mine used to have about 45 tabs.
I don't think I've gone that far, but that's a lot of tabs.
And it was almost an organized mess where he would have 6 different searches. He would then have a blank tab and then 6 more searches. And that's how he kept track of what was going. Problem is, he had browser performance that was so slow because each one of those tabs, it's like we talked before, is cached in memory. So each one of those is ready if you wanted to click on it to quickly be accessed. So all of that data is there.
Right.
So yeah, I would say 5 tabs max. Like let's not kill it with 20 or 30 tabs because you will see a performance hit, especially on browsers like Chrome. Browsers like Chrome are known to use a lot of RAM, memory is what we call it here. And that memory, the more tabs, the more usage, the slower the browser. And then you will experience those issues. Okay,
so it's okay to have a lot of tabs open maybe for during the day while you're at work, but close them out when you go home.
Close them out. You don't want to add them to the next day's workload. You really want to just try to keep it as fresh as you can.
Yeah, and I get it. A lot of people tell me, well, I leave all these tabs open because I don't want to. I guess it's an extra step to make a bookmark. That's
the correct step.
The correct step is make the bookmark and organize them with folders
so that you know exactly where to go the next time you're trying to access that website.
If you don't have your bookmarks organized with folders, I cannot stress enough. You have to do that.
It's game changing. It really is because it makes it so quick to find what you're trying to find without having to have it open each time.
And if you are using Chrome, I'm a Chrome user as well, but go to Tab Manager. And then you can actually, our bookmark manager, bookmark manager, and you can manage all of your bookmarks, create folders, drag and drop. It's very, very simple.
And regardless of the browser you use, whether it be Safari, Edge, Chrome, there's a few extra ones, they all have this feature now pretty much native. So
yes, it's very, very important.
I would definitely recommend using it.
Yeah, absolutely. So you briefly touched on updates.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, the question is, as soon as an update comes out, am I the guinea pig, or am I safe to go ahead and just do an update?
For the most part, if you're seeing it already, you're
Yep.
safe to do it.
Okay.
Like you're not the guinea pig. This goes through testing, and we're mainly talking like Microsoft updates,
Yes.
but applications have updates too. And how that can affect slowness is they might patch something where there's a memory leak, and you're already
Okay.
having slowness. If you don't push that update, if you're not patching your computer with that update, you're really not going to benefit from the speed increases that they have built in. So it's really important that you're always doing updates. Also, in addition to the slowness issue, security has always got to be top of mind. And so you have to push updates if you want your computer to be more secure, because as Microsoft finds things, they patch them. But oftentimes it still relies on you to make sure that you're pushing that update.
That makes sense. So, yeah, just because you're doing the update, I mean, well, essentially you need to do the updates on your applications as well as, okay.
Correct.
That makes sense.
Yep.
As far as clicking on things when it comes to installing, so we all love to download an app from the internet, and you get the exe file, and you double click the exe file from anything you download, because maybe you need a little tool to do something. Maybe you need to convert an audio file to an MP3, so you download a quick little app. And is it safe to always be installing these things? I mean, how should I know to be clicking install or not install?
Well, you got to check to see if it's reputable. And we can use web browsers for a lot of that, Google search engine, to try to test if it's a reputable source.
Yeah.
Do some research first, because what we're seeing is a lot of times we'll have an issue. My computer is slow, and we'll have to walk back to find out what triggered that slowness to fix it. And a lot of times what we're seeing is, well, I clicked on something I shouldn't have. Now, there's two key things to talk about there. The first thing is it will cause slowness, right? Because a lot of these softwares, if they're not legitimate, will contain malware and stuff like that, which will slow down your resources, because basically they're using your PC to piggyback some sort of malicious code, which is going to slow you down. And the second one, the more terrifying part, is the security concern of installing that software. Because if you're installing that software, you're basically allowing a piece of software on your computer where you might do your banking, you're doing your browsing, you're doing a lot of things that contain sensitive and private information. And this malware, this malicious code, basically has access to that. So we target it in two different areas. One, it's gonna hit your performance, which is the topic today. But two, more so, it's going to affect security. And more often than not, if we're coming across a security concern, it always starts with, I clicked on something I shouldn't have.
Yeah, and along with that, so you bring up a good point. On the security side, let's say you're sitting there doing nothing. All of a sudden a window pops up and says, you have an immediate need to do something. There's some immediate need to take an action, and click this button. Now, it looks like a legit Microsoft window pop-up with the red X and the whole, in the upper right-hand corner. What do you do then? I mean, because the immediate instinct, obviously, is click the red X and close it.
Correct. And you don't always want to do that.
Okay.
Because that red X might just be an image loaded. And if that red X isn't actually the X at the top, you might just be installing that software package by clicking on that image. So what I'd recommend is, if you have access to all the other programs that you have open currently, and we're going to talk about this later, save them, make sure we have good copies, and then force that computer down and start it back up.
Okay.
Because a lot of times you're just going to want to clear that old data. You're likely not infected if you get that pop-up. But if you click on it, you're probably going to get infected. So
That's right.
Be safe, shut it down, bring the computer back up after everything's been saved, and then just start from where you were.
And then I would imagine you want to double check with your IT provider or to make sure your machine is clean.
Absolutely. So you check with your provider, run a malware scan. Everybody has Windows Defender on their computer if it's a Windows PC, so I always recommend running that. Sometimes that's good enough to alert already before having to run it. But then check with your provider, because there are other tools that are ran that can really find stuff that's deep on the computer.
That makes sense. Yeah. And, you brought this up a second ago, but I want to make sure we touch on this, and that is the auto save.
Auto save.
So everybody, you're doing your work, and there's nothing worse than sitting there for hours and hours doing something. And then, of course, your computer crashes and you lose that work. But you can't always depend on the auto save, can you?
You cannot. So autosave is a feature that got much better. We all know this. If we save something in one of the Microsoft products, Word, Excel, something like that, we will get an autosave feature. The issue is when you create a new document and you haven't saved it yet. It's saving out a temp file. So we are hoping that everything we've done is being saved. So I always say, save early, save often. Always keep
Yes.
saving. If this stuff is important enough that it's going to cause a problem from not having it, then it's important enough to make sure you're saving. Don't always rely on the auto saving. Every 10, 15 minutes, I'd say, it's one button. Go up there, click save.
Exactly.
And that just makes sure that you have a copy of that data that you know is not relying on something that's auto saving.
That's perfect. No, that makes absolute total sense. It's back in the 80s, 90s, you would have to click that or you would lose everything in your whole world.
You would.
But yeah, nowadays you still do have to do that. So there's one thing that can take up a lot of speed on a computer, and that is when you boot up, you got a lot of things booting up with it.
Absolutely.
And you don't necessarily see everything that's booting up with it.
Correct.
And they're called startups, I guess, startup applications.
The startup applications.
Yes. So what should we be looking for? How many apps? I mean, what kind of thing? What's a safe thing? And
so a very easy way to look at it is only start up what you're going to be using every single time.
Okay.
Now, I know this from personal experience that every time you install a piece of software, it could be for Cricut, the little vinyl mapping stuff, it wants to put it in startup. These programs want to be a part of your startup. It benefits them to be a part of your startup.
Sure.
One, it makes their programs load a little bit quicker whenever you do click on it. Two, there's advertising behind it because if it's started, it's running, it can collect data. So what you're going to want to do is go into your startup items. Now, this is very easy on Windows 10 or 11, and that's what most people have.
Okay.
We're actually just going into the Task Manager, which they made a little bit easier as well. You're right-clicking at the bottom of the screen, Task Manager, and you'll see an option there for Startup. It lets you enable or disable the items. Only start up what you need to start up. Now, one caveat to that is something like Adobe, which is a program that we all use.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to want it to start up. And the reason is because those updates. Because if you use Adobe all the time, if you start it up, it can trigger those updates to make sure that that's up to date and that you're secure there as well.
Gotcha.
So on Adobe, I do recommend starting it up. But if you're just have hobbies on the side that you install software for, those don't need to be started up. You can start them up when you need them. And usually when you do it like that, it's going to prompt for an update the first time you run it anyway.
True. Okay. So because that can be a big reason why your computer's running
Absolutely.
slow.
So
if you're running 12 or
Yeah.
20 different applications in the background, you may not even have something open on your desktop, but your computer's full of applications that are running.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
So when people get a brand new computer and they're like, it's running snappy.
Yeah.
It's been 3 months and now it's not. One of the first things we look at is what's actually starting up when this computer runs, because that's all applications that are running at that point in time. So if you can cut down on the amount of applications running when you don't need them to run, you're going to notice a speed increase already.
Okay. That makes complete sense. And of course, this is always this next one's always a great one. The immediate blame of the computer.
Yes.
When sometimes the person's not even on a standalone app on their desktop, they're using the internet.
Absolutely.
And then blame the computer because the computer's slow, but really it's the internet.
Yeah, really, the way to look at this is it becomes harder to distinguish between the two oftentimes. And what we'll see this is a lot of people use all their applications within a web browser now.
Yep.
That's just the way things are going. That's the way things are going to continue to go. And so they'll say, my computer's slow, when in reality, their internet's slow. So the easiest way to check for this is when you're in a browser, just speed test. You can Google speed test.
Yeah.
And it'll tell you. And you should know based off what you're paying on your bill if you're getting the appropriate speed. Now, one of the first things we do internally here is we're checking speed internal on your network. We're checking speed out to the internet. And then we're going to your computer speed because likely it's internet speed that's causing this sort of bottleneck situation. And again, it also goes down to how many tabs you have open, how many things are trying to actively go out there. It can slow you down just doing that.
Absolutely. And especially at your house too, for if you're at your home and all of a sudden things start slowing down, well, if you have 100 devices connected to your Wi-Fi and you have an older router that's 5-7 years old, you probably have a router bottleneck that's keeping you from doing your thing, the work from home speed.
Yeah, and sometimes ISPs won't be the best about saying, hey, let's get you on the newest hardware, right? Because they got you paying the same bill.
You're paying the monthly for the old one.
You're paying that. So it does benefit you oftentimes that if you're seeing this, let's work with the ISP. Let's reach out to the ISP. Do you have anything new? Is the speed better on that? And likely, if you're on a modem or a router that's from 3 years ago, we've improved a lot in 3 years. So it is important for us to always re-engage on that and make sure we're getting what we're paying for.
Absolutely. Yeah. In fact, I recently upgraded a Spectrum router at home because the speed was starting to drag, and I realized it was almost 7 years old or 6 years old. And that when I got the new one,
Yeah.
I went immediately to a gig up, gig down speed.
Yeah,
so it was,
yeah, those devices can update only so much, right? There's a hardware
Yeah.
limitation where they can't
Right.
they can't update, and that's where those new devices come in play, and then they can really give you the benefit of the full speed.
So definitely check the internet before you blame the computer
Definitely check
immediately.
the internet
Yes.
before you just think it's the computer.
Yeah.
And like you'll kind of know when it comes to browsing. Like if you click on Chrome and it takes 45 seconds to load, we likely have a computer issue, right?
Right.
Because
Sure.
the application itself isn't loading.
Yeah.
But if Chrome loaded like that, and then we go to a website and that doesn't load, we're either looking at internet or what we talked about before, which is malware. Malware can do that same thing. And so
Okay.
that's why it's important to get an IT provider in there looking at that, because if you do experience that all of the time,
Yeah.
what you're looking at could be malware. It
Okay.
could be internet speed, but either way, you don't want to play with it because
Right.
you probably have more important things to do than wait for something to spin and a website to load.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Especially since a lot of you guys out there are working from home, and that's a
Absolutely.
very, very big deal.
Yep.
Is to keep your computer going. And speaking of working from home, or even anywhere for that matter, it's coming down to your files.
That's right.
So yes, it's great to have them on your computer. If you have them on an external USB drive, which I've seen a lot of people do,
Yep.
just be careful. Those things break.
They do.
And if they do, all that data is gone
Yep.
because it's usually a solid state drive, and once it's cracked, sometimes it's gone. But what would you recommend, I guess, to make sure that these files are safe in the case you do get malware, that you do think it's a slowed down computer? I mean, where should we be keeping all this stuff?
So one nice thing that Microsoft has done over the last 20 years is OneDrive.
Okay. Yep. And we use OneDrive a lot.
We
yes.
use it here. It's a nice product for backing up those types of files. What it is not a full system backup. So
Okay.
it definitely isn't going to just restore your computer by default. There's extra steps you have to take. But what we're talking about here really are all those important files. They could be your pictures. They could be
all the documents,
your
spreadsheet.
financial information.
Yeah.
Now there is a cost associated with some of that. They have a base plan that
Okay.
it comes with, and that does a lot for those base stuff. But if you're a type of person who might be into photography, something like that, you will have to upgrade. It's on a subscription. You have to pay that fee. But at the end of the day, the peace of mind that comes with that is, it's insurmountable at the end of the day when there's a crash.
Yeah. Oh,
Because
absolutely.
you have a copy of all of your stuff. You move to another computer, you have a copy of all of your stuff. It's there. So OneDrive is the primary option. Another option that's used a lot, is Dropbox as well.
Yep.
Like people use Dropbox to back up their files as well.
Yep. And then Google Drive, if you're
Yes,
living in the
Google
Google
Drive,
universe,
yes.
because a
Google
lot
Drive.
of folks are living in the Google universe.
And Apple,
But-
this is built into a lot of their products already.
Yeah, the iCloud backups.
With iCloud backups.
100%.
So they do that one. They've been doing that one good for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm an iCloud guy, but also
Yep.
OneDrive at work.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
then, but there's nothing wrong with Dropbox or
No,
Google
it's-
Drive. I mean, whatever you're using,
Yeah.
just keep it in one place.
Yes.
Don't have files in 3 or 4 different locations that aren't updated.
The only way you could go wrong is not doing it at all.
Yeah.
So if you do it OneDrive, if you do it Dropbox, if you're on an Apple, and like you said before, USBs are not always reliable. We've known this. We've both dealt with this before. But if that is your only option, all IT guys do it too. I've got external hard drives for bits and pieces of data.
Yeah.
But then I also have it backed up to the cloud. That's one of the benefits of having the cloud. It's always there. You don't have to rely on a drive. So it is something that I would recommend absolutely prioritizing is backups.
Absolutely,
It will save you more than it will hurt you.
Yes. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Even if it takes some time to restore
Yes.
the computer itself,
Correct.
at least having your files there
Absolutely.
is great. It's
Yeah.
fantastic. I mean, and nowadays most people aren't stealing computers because they're locked down so much with
Correct.
facial recognition and thumbprints and everything, and
Yeah.
tracking with your Find My device on Mac
That's right.
and so forth and everything else. But it's still a matter of keeping your files in one place.
Absolutely.
The other nice thing too is when you switch devices, it's nice to be able to go from a tablet to
It's
your
really nice.
to your laptop
Yes.
and back and forth, being able to pull the files from one place. So that's definitely a thing. And just make sure it's syncing.
Make sure it's syncing.
Yes.
That is a
Yeah.
huge thing that we see all the time.
Yeah.
I couldn't access this file, and it has a little nice indicator, a little red that shows you it wasn't syncing. Green is good, red is bad.
Yeah.
So definitely keep an eye on that. It's in the
Okay.
bottom right-hand side of your computer when you have OneDrive or something like that.
Yep. That's perfect. Well, so we went to our 20-minute time limit. I wanted to see if there's any questions out there. I know we have a few here that I definitely want to go over, but we covered the top 8 things that really talk about how to get your computer in good shape. It's always good to consult with ThrottleNet, of course,
Absolutely.
or your IT provider. If you're not using ThrottleNet, which obviously they should be using ThrottleNet, but if you're not using ThrottleNet, consult with your IT provider immediately if your computer's running slow.
Absolutely.
What we don't want is for you to infect your entire network.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and that brings up a point that I want to make sure that we cover is how do I know if it's a network issue, not an internet, because we talked about the internet.
Sure.
But how do I not know that my whole network's not infected?
Yeah.
And I'm the culprit for infecting the network because on my computer.
A good indicator for network issues is it being intermittent.
Okay.
So it might work well for 5 minutes and it doesn't work well for 5 minutes. It works well for the next 5 and then it doesn't work for the next 5. So it's a very intermittent issue.
Okay.
Obviously, if the network's down, then we know we have a network issue. That's really easy to diagnose. Hey, I can't access anything.
Yeah.
I have my computer, I logged into my computer, but now I can't get to anything. Whether it be a shared drive, I can't print, I can't access the internet. Now we have a network issue.
Now it's a network,
right?
okay.
It's just the type of network issue we're looking at, whether it's internal, something we have to troubleshoot that way, or if it's external with the ISP. So it's easy to see a network issue because everything just kind of comes to a crawl. They're all based on it nowadays. So everything will come to a crawl. Your computer might act snappy still when it's loading applications. Another good indicator is if you load an application and it doesn't let you log in. We got a network issue.
Okay.
And what we're doing is we're identifying where that network issue is, whether it's an outage that we see from time to time from one of these pieces of software, or whether it's on your local network, you're not getting out to authenticate that login. It's something you have to address.
Okay. So very important to pay attention to that. And that's something you should immediately be talking to your IT person.
Absolutely. Immediately. Because if you don't, you're going to be sitting there 30 minutes later wishing you'd already had that conversation.
Yeah, before you see a red screen of death and your whole company is under a ransom attack.
Right, yeah. Yes, because you will see that.
Yes.
Right? Devices start popping offline. You'll see stuff on your screen. Like there are indicators when something's going on. They're usually... nowadays the hackers want you to know. It's not so much.
That's a good point.
It's not so much always the case where they are infiltrating for a long-term game.
Yep.
A lot of times this is quick, this is action. They want you to know. They're putting it on your screens. So get someone involved right away. Your IT provider, ThrottleNet. It's what we do all day long, so that we can address that issue.
Awesome. And one of the questions was, how can I tell if a pop-up is legit or a scam? I mean, I just assume, and this is me, I assume, and maybe I'm wrong, I just assume they're all scams. If I didn't click on something, or if I'm not expecting it to be on the screen, I immediately go to, this is a scam mode, shut this thing down.
Yes, that's a great mindset to have.
Okay,
it's all spam. However, you'll know if you're using the application, if it's an Adobe pop-up, something like that. A good indicator, a good early indicator is, are they instilling a sense of urgency? Okay. You have to click on this or this will happen. And if that's happening, it's a spam every time.
Okay.
Like they are trying to force your behavior to click on something, making you more vulnerable to them.
Okay.
So absolutely, if you see that message, it's a scam.
It's a scam.
It's the same. You're not going to get money from a Nigerian prince. It's all a scam.
Right.
That's it's been around for a long time, and that sense of urgency is what they're trying to do.
Okay, that totally makes sense. And then one question that I run into all the time as well is if you plug in a device, if you open a brand new application, you'll get a little pop-up window that says, do you want to allow? And it's either allow or don't allow.
Yes.
So pay attention to that.
Yes.
I have to pay, because it happens all the time on a Mac. If you plug in something that it doesn't recognize.
Yes.
And it's legit. Maybe it's a microphone or a webcam, or maybe it's an external drive. But sometimes it'll pop up and say, would you like this app to have access to your camera or to your microphone?
Yes. Always know what you're getting into, basically.
Yes.
Whether you're installing it, you should know that. If you don't know that, always do not allow. Just don't take the risk.
Yep.
You'll know it pretty quickly if you were supposed to allow it, because you'll run that application or that webcam. It won't work.
And it won't work, right.
And so you'll know, and then you're not sorry later for clicking on something you shouldn't.
Yes, that now has access to your camera.
That now
when
has
you don't
access to your camera.
Yes.
That now can see you.
Yes.
So, yes.
And hear you in most cases.
Yep.
Yes. No, that's great. So I really appreciate answering all those questions. That was a lot to go through for your slow computer, but it's important to pay attention to these things because it can go to something much, much worse.
It can, real quickly.
And that slow computer can be a symptom of something much bigger.
That's right.
And then you're into a whole nother can of worms in which you do not even want to go down that path.
Absolutely right.
Not fun. That's not a fun day.
Not fun at all.
No. Well, thank you so much for joining me,
Thank you
Chris.
for
I
having
really
me.
appreciate your time and your expertise, of course. For those of you out there, if you want to take a look at where your cybersecurity stance is in the world, I would highly recommend going to throttlenet.com/971. That's throttlenet.com/971. There is a really short online questionnaire that you can take to take a look at where you are in a cybersecurity position and how safe you think you are versus what you really are.
That's
And it's
right.
extremely important to go take. It takes a couple of minutes. It's totally free. It's out on
Yes.
the internet for you to take a look at, but it can be a very eye-opening set of questions.
That's right.
To take a look at where you're at in the world, so that just because you think you're safe doesn't mean that you necessarily are.
Correct.
It's very important to do that. So thank you all for joining us, though. We really, really appreciate it, and look forward to seeing everybody next time on our ThrottleNet webinar series. Thanks again. Have a great rest of the week.